Welcome back, accomplices.
For joining Thick Thighs and Murder Vibes' first ever Thanksgiving special.
The holiday season kicks off this Thursday when uncles and cousins and college student children will travel cross-country and gather around tables, where they'll offer thanks for the things they appreciate most, their love for one another. Well, that's one version anyway.
For some, though, the holidays can be considerably more grim, like for the families involved in the 3 Thanksgiving murders we will cover in today's episode.
Although it's widely believed that rates of domestic violence spike during the holidays, the unbelievable research shows that assumption to be limited and inconclusive. However, it may be that when gruesome crimes do occur during the holidays, they get more widespread media coverage since they're so out of the norm of what we'd expect during such celebratory times.
Sociologist Richard Gels, an expert on family violence who has written over 20 books on the subject, says there are 3 primary reasons for holiday violence. The first, Gels says, is economic stress, which is more apparent to a struggling family during the holiday season. Quote, what they can't afford for a Thanksgiving dinner, for Christmas dinner, for gifts, end quote.
And in the forced intimacy of a small town family holiday with the stores and restaurants all closed and fraught relatives feeling an obligation to be together all day, the stress can be compounded. I can totally relate.
The third reason, Gels argues, is the happiness gap. He says that, quote, all the TV advertisements, all the TV specials are about how loving and wonderful families are and how stress-relieving all families are. And of course, that is a bit of a myth.
A myth that was dispelled for these 3 families in the most heartbreaking way.
Our first case takes us to the Mahari Gabrasilausi family in Oakland, California. Talk about troubles with the in-laws. So I will start this one by saying I am going to be mispronouncing every single one of these names. I had to look up the pronunciation on a few of these words, and then I just stopped because I'm never going to remember any of the pronunciations, so I apologize. A long simmering tension between 2 Atreyan families, joined by marriage, ended with a triple murder and a sibling pair in prison for first-degree murder. Asmaram and Tawadros, I don't know. Gabrasilausi, 53 and 44, were convicted in the killing of their sister-in-law, Winta Mahari, 28. Her mother, Egbe Barengasi, 50, and her brother, Jonas Mahari, 17, at the Mahari Thanksgiving. The brothers were 2 of 11 siblings who had immigrated to Oakland. They erroneously believed that Winta had killed her husband, their brother, Abraham Gabrielausi, earlier in the year to gain access to his $500,000 life insurance policy. A pathologist determined that Abraham had died of natural causes. Tawadros was invited to the Mahari Thanksgiving, from where he contacted Asmaram and opened the door for him into the apartment. He then kidnapped their infant nephew while his brother gunned down the others. The brothers were found guilty in 2011 and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In 2016, Tawadros was released from prison after having his conviction overthrown and his prison sentence revised.
Okay, so I might not even make it to Thanksgiving this year because I gave Shaina the case with all the fucked up names.
Bitch.
You still love me, though.
She gets the one about the Nelsons.
That's right. Our second case takes us to the Nelsons in Costa Mesa, California. On Thanksgiving Day, 1991, Egyptian-born fashion model. See, I also have tricky names. Omima? Okay. Omima Nelson, 20. Yeah. You can't call her that anymore.
My bad. It's just Auntie.
Egyptian-born fashion model Omima Nelson, 23, repeatedly plunged a pair of scissors into the chest and stomach of Bill Nelson, her 56-year-old pilot husband in Costa Mesa, California. Then she reached for a clothing iron. As Bill flailed, Omima pummeled him to death with the iron until the heavy object actually broke in her hand.
Damn.
I know. How fucking hard you gotta be hitting somebody with a clothes iron for it to break in your hand. But she unleashed her fury. She claimed over the sexual terror and other abuses in which Bill had subjected her, acts that reportedly included him pimping out his glamorous bride to old creeps in exchange for rent, cash, and in one case, a car. How nice was the car, though? Just kidding. Just kidding.
A new car!
When Bill died, Omima butchered his body on the kitchen floor. She then boiled his hands in oil to remove fingerprints and stuck his head in the freezer so she could later break out his teeth. In symbolic revenge, Omima made a point of castrating her husband as well.
As she should.
As Omima stuffed some body parts into trash bags and fed others down her garbage disposal, it must have occurred to her that she hadn't eaten anything all day. And on Thanksgiving of all days. According to court documents, Omima told a psychiatrist she prepared Bill's ribs with barbecue sauce, put them in the oven, and then upon sinking her teeth into her dead husband's glazed flesh, declared, "It's so sweet." At the time of the alleged cannibalism, Omima and Bill had been married for less than 3 weeks. You heard that right, folks. 3 weeks. And they had known each other for a total of 5 weeks. So over the next few days, Omima enlisted a pair of ex-boyfriends to help her get rid of Bill's leftover remains. On December 1st, police got a tip about body parts being seen inside a parked car that belonged to Bill Nelson. The parts, of course, also belonged to Bill Nelson. Well, I'd hope so. Officers dropped by Omima's home to inform her of the discovery, and once there, found still more newspaper-wrapped pieces of Bill in the refrigerator. They promptly arrested Omima for first-degree murder. Omima immediately claimed self-defense. She said that in addition to trading out her body, Bill was a BDSM enthusiast who routinely bound her against her will and raped her. She further claimed Bill had raped her on Thanksgiving morning and that she had feared he would kill her. Orange County Deputy District Attorney Randy Pulowski countered that Omima was a scam artist who preyed on men, specifically using bondage sex games to rob them. At the time of the slaying, in fact, she faced 3 felony charges regarding a 1990 incident in which she allegedly tied up an ex, slapped him around, and demanded money at gunpoint. Slay girl! Remarkably, the Omima Nelson saga grew increasingly more sordid once it got to trial. First, Omima's interview with a psychiatrist came to light, in which she detailed putting on, quote, a red dress, red shoes, and red hat before prepping and cooking Bill's rib meat. She wanted a fancy Thanksgiving dinner. There's nothing wrong with that. Upon digging in at the kitchen table, according to the doctor, Omima declared, quote, I did his ribs just like in a restaurant. It's so sweet. It's so delicious. I like mine tender. The psychiatrist asserted that Omima was in a, quote, psychotic state when she offed and ate Bill, and added that in 20 years of his practice, he had never experienced a conversation with a subject, quote, so bizarre, so psychotic. In turn, its attorneys painted a horrifying, heartbreaking portrait of Omima's ordeal growing up in Egypt. As a child, she had been subjected to female genital mutilation or clitoral circumcision and submitted herself to loathsome sexual humiliations in order to survive. The defense also portrayed Bill Nelson as a sick sadist who tortured his wife sexually, physically, psychologically. When she adopted when she adopted a kitten, for example, Bill allegedly pulled the animal from Omima's lap in a moving car and tossed it out a window.
Monster.
According to the sensationalism, the courtroom walls were lined with photos of Bill's deep-fried hands, frozen head, and skinned torso. Upping the tawdry atmosphere even further, the number one movie dominating pop culture at the time was the cannibal shocker Silence of the Lambs. A coincidence not lost on the media covering the case, who almost never failed to invoke the film's flesh-eating anti-hero Dr. Hannibal Lecter. The jury had much to consider then when deliberations commenced on January 4th, 1993. 6 days later, they came back and declared Omima Nelson guilty of second-degree murder. Jury foreman Famous Hooks said afterward... Famous Hooks? Okay. Said
Is that really his name?
I guess so. I didn't catch that when I was writing this.
Famous Hooks
said afterwards, quote, "It was really a tough decision. We couldn't come back with a first-degree murder verdict because we couldn't find the evidence. It wasn't there. It took us 6 days. We worked really hard." Okay, she either fucking killed him or she didn't. And she admitted that she did. Superior Court Judge Robert Fitzgerald sentenced Omima to 27 years to life in prison. Since going away, Omima has vehemently denied eating Bill. When she came up for parole in 2011, Omima insisted she was, quote, "not a monster," and pointed out that she had never hurt the man she married while incarcerated, even though in the trailer where the couple had conjugal visits, there were knives in the kitchen. The parole board remained unimpressed. Omima is expected to serve the remainder of her term, and she will not be able to seek parole again until 2026. So in like a month, a little over a month.
Nice. Well, hopefully I can pronounce all these names. Our third and final case takes us to the Guy family in Knoxville, Tennessee. Joel Michael Guy Sr. was a pipeline engineering designer. Lisa Guy was a human resources accounts payable administrator at Jacobs Engineering in Oak Ridge. Their son, Joel Michael Guy Jr., graduated from the Louisiana School for Math, Science, and the Arts in Natchitoches in 2006. We're going to go with that word. Hopefully you guys know where that's at. And previously attended Hahnville High School. He had never worked and had always been supported by his family. Guy Jr. was described by others as distant and an outsider, and never bothered to establish a relationship with anyone in or outside his family, while his mother doted on him. He spent one semester at George Washington University, then attended Louisiana State University as a student and lived in Baton Rouge until the murders in 2016. Ostensibly training to become a plastic surgeon. What did I say?
Plastic surgery.
He was training to become a plastic surgery.
He's gonna be a nose job, okay?
My bad. The Guys had recently sold their Knoxville house and planned to retire to Surgeonsville. He wanted to be a surgeon in Surgeonsville. Guy Jr. and his 3 half-sisters attended what was to be the last event at the Knoxville house, Thanksgiving, on Thursday, November 24th, 2016.
It started amicably. Joel Michael Guy Jr. traveled from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, back home to Knoxville, Tennessee, where he reunited with his 3 sisters and their parents over turkey and stuffing. At the end of the evening, the 3 daughters, who all lived in Tennessee, returned to their homes. Guy Jr. was left alone with his parents. That's when the violence erupted. The Knox County Sheriff's Department claims Guy Jr. stabbed and dismembered his parents, then attempted to dissolve their bodies in a mix of drain cleaner, sewer cleaner, hydrogen peroxide, and bleach. Family members told authorities that his parents intended to tell him of their plans to scale back support over the Thanksgiving weekend. On November 26, 2016, Guy Jr. attacked and killed his father with a knife in a second-floor exercise room while his mother was out shopping for groceries at Walmart. The scene showed evidence of a struggle with torn blinds, blood on the wall and corner, and an overturned Blowflex.
What does a Blowflex do?
It's a mouth exercise. An overturned Bowflex machine. Upon arriving home, Lisa Guy entered through the front door, dropped the groceries on the floor of the foyer, proceeded upstairs, was attacked, then killed with a knife. 9 of her ribs were severed.
Guy Sr.'s hands were removed at the wrists and left nearby on the exercise room floor. Lisa's head was removed, carried downstairs, placed in a pot on the stove, and heated. At trial, the forensic examiner testified the head was not just severed, but broken off with force. Both victims also had their arms and legs disarticulated. Guy Sr. at the waist and Lisa at the knees, and their limbs and torsos were placed in a bin full of chemicals to dissolve. Each body had a large gash inflicted after death so that the chemicals would more quickly seep into the body's main cavity. In the assault on his father, Guy Jr. sustained several cuts to his hands, including a deep cut to his left thumb. At approximately 3:30 p.m., Guy Jr. was seen in Walmart's first aid section, obtaining bandages and ointment for the wounds to his hands. He also purchased isopropyl alcohol and hydrogen peroxide. On Sunday, Guy Jr. drove back to Baton Rouge to have his wounds treated at the student clinic. When Lisa didn't return to work after the holiday, her boss called police for a welfare check.
First, Knox County officers Stephen Ballard and Jeremy McCord and others found a seemingly empty house on Golden View Lane. The property was for sale, yet there was no real estate lock on the front door. They soon discovered the back doorknob had been removed and installed on the front door. Through the front door, they could see groceries on the floor, including perishable items such as bacon, sausage, and ice cream. Through the hole left by the missing back doorknob, they could sense heat and a strange smell emanating from the house. And from another angle, they could see the groceries. So I guess they could just see groceries from all angles.
They had a lot of groceries.
Yeah, they had a lot of groceries. An officer used a garage door opener in one of the guys' cars to gain access to the house. The first discovered a table with the guys' wallets and a sledgehammer on top, and then another with long guns. Downstairs, the stove was on, and the contents of the pot were boiling. At the bottom of the stairs, there were grocery items seen earlier. They ascended the stairs, hearing an intermittently barking dog. They looked down a hallway, saw Joel Guy Sr.'s severed hands on the floor, and discovered the dismembered corpses in solution in a bathroom. Among other items investigators found at the home were sewer line cleaner, a bag of baking soda, drain opener, a bottle of muriatic acid, lye, hydrogen peroxide, several bottles of bleach, a spray bottle, a pair of gloves, and trash bags. Investigators also discovered a note in an open suitcase with the name and an address of a Louisiana Ace Hardware store, along with a notation about sewer line cleaner. The toxins required biohazard equipment for removal by the Knox County Sheriff's Office hazmat team. Due to the volume of evidence found, KCSO's forensic unit worked throughout Monday night and into the following day processing the crime scene.
The FBI, Knox County Sheriff's Office, and East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office placed Guy Jr. under surveillance for a few days and apprehended him on November 29th as he was entering his 2006 Sonata in the Nicholson Drive apartment complex parking lot in Baton Rouge. A meat grinder was discovered in the trunk of Guy Jr.'s car. Guy Jr. pled not guilty, yet filed a motion that he be given the death penalty if convicted. Guy Jr.'s defense counsel, John Halstead and Jonathan Harwell, presented no evidence on his behalf. The prosecution was led by Leslie Nazios and Hector Sanchez. The prosecution at his trial dubbed the handwritten journal found in Guy Jr.'s backpack the, quote, Book of Premeditation, as it contained detailed notes outlining his intent to murder and destroy the remains of his parents. Guy Jr. was caught on several surveillance cameras buying the supplies he would later use to murder and try to dissolve his parents. He used cash for every transaction and self-checkout most of the time. He bought supplies for the murder as early as November 7th, purchasing several items at an Ace Hardware in Napoleonville, including muriatic acid and food-grade hydrogen peroxide. On November 18th at Home Depot, Cameras recorded him buying the bleach sprayer, extension cords, and a timer. At Academic Sports on November 19th, he was seen buying a knife. On November 21st, cameras captured Guy Jr. at a Knoxville Walmart buying blue totes. Lisa Guy was also seen on surveillance footage shortly before her murder. I would hope it wouldn't be after.
I was gonna say, I'm like, fuck.
Shortly before her murder, buying items at Walmart at approximately 12:15 p.m.
The trial took 4 days. Guy Jr. was found guilty on 2 counts of first-degree felony murder and sentenced to life in prison. He was also convicted of abuse of a corpse. In 2023, an appeal to overturn the sentence of Guy Jr. was denied. Joel Michael Guy Jr. is currently incarcerated at the Northwest Correctional Complex in Tiptonville, Tennessee.
Whether you're celebrating the Thanksgiving holiday with family, friends, or just yourself, don't kill anyone.
And I think I speak for all of us when I say there's one more thing for us to all be thankful for this year.
We hope you enjoyed this special episode of Thick Thighs and Murder Vibes.
And that you have I can't fucking talk today. And that you have a safe and happy Thanksgiving.
As always, you can hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, and by emailing thickthighsmurdervibes@gmail.com.
For now, we're getting out of here. We have some turkey to eat. Bye.
Bye.